Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody's enjoying this beautiful Friday afternoon. I'm Ariana Davis from the Faculty Multimedia Center. I just want to give a quick check-in, make sure everybody can hear me okay. If you can hear me all right, if you don't mind letting me know in the chat. Looks like everybody can hear me okay, great. All right, so to get started, the first thing, if you're already using the chat, great. If not, go ahead and click chat at the bottom and you'll be able to see a lot of activity happening there. If you have any questions for our 10 panelists that are in this meeting with you, whether that's related to Zoom or web courses, you can ask that there. There's plenty of people standing by ready to answer questions there. If you want to direct it just to our panelists, you can hit the drop-down menu next to 2 and select all panelists. If you would like to address it to everybody in the room, you can select all panelists and attendees. Today, Janan and I are going to cover the basics of web courses and the basics of Zoom. And we'll get through that pretty quickly, and then we should have plenty of time at the end to answer additional questions that anybody may have. So if everybody is ready to get started, I think we might just go ahead and jump right in. So I will pass this over to Janan and let her get started.
Thank you, Ariana. Good afternoon, everyone. As Ariana mentioned, I'm Janan Acosta. I supervise the web courses at UCF support team with the Center for Distributed Learning. The web courses at UCF support team is standing by to answer any questions that you or your students may have. So that is a great resource for you. And let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at web courses at UCF. So we're going to start off with, and you should be seeing my screen, and I'm on the UCF Keep Teaching website. So there are a couple of different ways to access web courses at UCF. One easy way is to click on, if you're at any ucf.edu website, you'll notice this banner at the top of the page. You can click here on UCF Sign In and click Web Courses, or you can just type in webcourses.ucf.edu. That works as well. Let's go ahead and click on this link. You'll be prompted to log in, and you will enter your NID and your NID password and click Sign On. So we're just going to run through some basics with getting started with web courses at UCF. The audience for this workshop is faculty who generally would normally teach face-to-face, but are having to switch to remote learning in light of the current unusual circumstances. And it is not intended to replace any of the professional development offerings that the Center for Distributed Learning does offer. So those are still options, and those are still required for teaching completely online courses. This is just a way to get you online for the next few weeks, just until we can get through this. So with the understanding that faculty do already use web courses at UCF to upload their syllabi and to input grades for students, we are working on the assumption that you don't regularly use web courses at UCF, so we're going to stick with the basics here today. So I logged into web courses at UCF, and now I'm on my dashboard. You'll see that I have my one course that I want to show you here. If you find yourself here and you don't find the course that you're teaching, click on Courses and click on All Courses. This will show you all courses that you have access to, all courses that you're enrolled in, whether it be as a teacher or as a student. If you want to add something to your dashboard, you can click that little star and it'll be favorited, and then it'll show up on your dashboard. So go ahead and click on the link to the course that you want to work in. So the first thing I want to bring your attention to is the status of your course. It will either be published or unpublished. Yesterday evening, we did publish all web courses at UCF course sections because students are going to be logging in and expecting to see them there. So your course is probably already published. If it's not, you would click on the course, you would click on the publish button. If your course already is published, let me show you how you can choose your homepage. That's what I just did right there, but it's because my course wasn't published yet, so I was prompted. Since your course already is going to be published, click on Choose Homepage. We recommend setting the course activity stream as the homepage for your course. What that'll do is it will show students all of the most recent activity all of the most recent items that you've added to the course. And we highly recommend doing this just because we want them to access the course and find out what you want them to do right away. So click on Course Activity Stream. I wanted to direct your attention here to the inbox. You'll see that I have 12 unread messages in my inbox. When you log into web courses at UCF, you might notice that your students have already messaged you. Click on inbox and you'll see your messages from your students there. Let's go back to our course. One of the most important things you're going to want to do is reach out to your students so that they know how they can reach you, how you're expecting them to do their work, where you're going to be delivering your lectures. We recommend using announcements for this purpose. This says not visible to students because there's no content. Once we add an announcement here, it will become visible to students because you'll want your students to see the announcements. So to add an announcement, click on the Add Announcement button. You will give your announcement a title. We're going to call this Remote Instruction. Please check here for updates. You can delay the posting of your announcement to a later time and date if you check this box, and then you can set a date and time using this calendar. If you want to send it if you want to send it right away, don't check that box, and then click Save. Your announcement will show up on the course homepage. It will also show up in your students' to-do list when they log into web courses at UCF. There's been a bit of a delay with things popping up on the home screen. I think that web courses at UCF is just a little bit inundated right now, but it'll definitely show up there. There it is. So your students will see this when they log into web courses at UCF. They will have a to-do list here where you have a coming up list. They will also see it when they access the course and go to the home page. And then they will also receive announcements based upon the notification settings that they have set. I would definitely advise you to direct your students to set their notification settings. And any announcements should definitely be set to as soon as possible. Here you'll see that I'm receiving announcements immediately at my email and on all of my devices where I have the app installed, the Canvas student app. So let's go back to the course. In addition to announcements, I also wanted to walk you through how to create assignments for a grade. So if you had your students normally submitting something to you on paper or via email or something like that, this is where you can create an assignment Dropbox. It's sort of like a Dropbox. I'll show you how this works. Click on Add Assignments. Give your assignment a name. I will call it Assignment 1. Directions go here. And then you will set a point value for your assignment. Let's just go with 5. Here you'll be asked what type of submission to allow for the assignment. So this will be an online submission. Text entry will just give your students a text entry field where they can input their response, or you can allow them to upload files. And a really nice feature for file upload assignments is that you can record, or you can restrict the file types. So if you only wanted them to submit Word documents, for example, you would put doc and docx here, and that would restrict them to only upload those types of files. And then at the very bottom of the page, you'll notice the assign field. By default, all assignments will be assigned to everyone. You'll have a due date field here. This will be the date that gets added to your student's calendar and to-do list. It'll tell them when their assignment is due. Available from is the earliest possible time the students can submit the assignment. And the until date allows you to set a date after the due date where you'll still accept an assignment submission, but it'll be marked late in the gradebook. So once you've set these settings, go ahead and click Save and Publish. An assignment was created in the course. And you'll notice that if you click on grades, you'll be taken to the gradebook. And now the gradebook will contain an assignment 1 column because you've created an assignment for students, and this is where you'll input the grades. And then this is how you would also access the speed grader. The speed grader is a tool which allows you to quickly grade students' assignment submissions. So in order to access SpeedGrader from the gradebook, click on one of these cells next to a student name and click on the right arrow here to open up this tray. Click on SpeedGrader and you'll be taken to the SpeedGrader tool. So the SpeedGrader tool is really nice for quick and efficient grading. It'll show you everything that you need all in one screen here. This is where the student's submission would appear once they submit it. This is where you would input grades, and then this is where you would leave any comments for them. And you could also upload a file, you can leave an audio comment for them, and then you click submit and their grade is entered. And to go on to the next student, just click on the right arrow. So that is a really nice feature for grading. Let's go back to our course homepage. You'll notice that the assignment notification is also listed on the front page now. Let's look at discussions. So discussions will be really useful in order to either facilitate discussion between you and the students, or with the student among themselves, or as an actual assignment. So you could either create an assignment that is just a place to chat. I know some professors will call this something like a coffee talk. And this is where students can just come and post to each other. Everybody in the course will see all the postings. If you wanted to submit to create a discussion for credit, what it would do is it would be an assignment that the students have to complete, but they would post it to the discussion board and everyone in the course would see their responses. Let's call it discussion posting 1. This is where you would put a description of the assignment and what they had to do. And then down here under options, you would check the graded box. Once you check the graded box, you will be given some more options. You'll have to enter points possible. Let's enter 2. And then there's the assign field. This is the same as when you created a new assignment. Let's click save and publish, and our graded discussion will be created. Since this is a graded discussion, it will also show up as a gradebook column. And you will also be able to use SpeedGrader for these discussion postings, which is a really great way to do it, because then you don't have to sift through the discussion postings. You can just come here and any relevant postings from the student would show up right there. Another recommendation we have is to use the files section. So you can click on files. So you probably already have files that you have shared with your students either electronically or as a handout in the past. This would be a great place to upload something like an updated class schedule or a new syllabus or something like that. You would simply click on the upload button, select your file, click open, and then this could either be shown to your students or it can be hidden. If it's hidden, you can link students to these files, but they just won't be able to come here to the files section. So the next thing that we want to do is look at the navigation menu. So to go to the navigation menu, click on settings in your course, and then click on navigation up top. The items up here are the items that are enabled. They will show up in your course navigation menu. Items that are down here are not yet visible in your navigation menu. Since Ariana is going to go ahead and show us Zoom, I will show you how to enable Zoom here. So scroll all the way down to the bottom. It was just recently installed, so it's probably the last one on the list. click Enable, you'll notice that it popped up to the Enabled section. I recommend dragging it up a little bit further if you're going to be utilizing Zoom, so that way students just see it right up top. When you make changes to your navigation menu, make sure you scroll all the way down and click Save to save your changes. You'll notice that the Zoom link is right here, and all of the content that we've created in the course is listed here. So now that we've enabled Zoom, I think I will go ahead and pass it back to Ariana so she can show us Zoom.
Thank you, Jananne. That was
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm going to actually start where she just left off. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and jump into web courses. So this is my web course that I have open here, and I already have Zoom enabled. Zoom is at the bottom of my navigation down here. You can click Zoom to get there. So this is where I can schedule meetings or classes with my students, where it will actually automatically invite them to the class. When I schedule a meeting within Zoom at in web courses, it's going to send all of my students an email letting them know that I've scheduled a meeting. It'll have like the time and information, and I'll show you what that looks like real quick. So this is an example of what your students would receive when you schedule a meeting. It'll have a URL for them to join, the date and time, and tell them what course it's for. So let me jump back over to my course. So when I'm ready to schedule a meeting for my students or a class, I can come up to schedule a new meeting. The topic section is automatically pulled from my course name. If I want to change that, I can do so just by typing in the new name. I can add an optional description if I'd like to talk about what we might be covering. I can set a date and time. So if I was going to have my students meet me for class on Monday at 3 p.m., I can select that. I can select a duration for the meeting. So if I put 2 hours, that's okay. If I don't fulfill these 2 hours, that's okay. I can end the meeting early. In time zone, I just want to make sure that the default is set. It should be set for Eastern time for us here at UCF. For reoccurring, if I'd like to make this reoccurring every week at the same time, I can do so by checking this and setting any of these settings. In this case, I'm going to leave it unchecked and not make this a reoccurring meeting. I can come down to registration. I'm going to leave this unchecked. I don't want to have to worry about registering my students for my class. They're already registered in my web course, so I don't want to have to go through that twice with them. So I have the option to turn video on for the host, which is me. So I will do that. And I have the option to turn video on or off for my students, which are the participants, which I'm going to actually leave that off. If you have a lot of students in your class, that might get overwhelming to have all of their videos running. That doesn't mean that they can't turn them on later, but as they join the meeting, that they will be off. So I have audio options. I would like to leave this as both. It gives them the opportunity to join with their computer audio or call in. Some students have been displaced, so they might be having trouble with their computer or be using their mobile device to do some of their classwork, so having that option is good for them. I have the option to require a meeting password. If I leave this checked, the meeting password will automatically be sent with my invite to my students. If I leave it unchecked, that means that anybody who finds the link would need the password to enter. So I'll leave this. I also have the ability to enable them to join before I do. If I leave this checked, that means that my students can come into my class before I join the meeting. We have had people say that they've had their students joining before their actual scheduled time. So as Janine showed you in announcements, I would recommend that you, if you schedule a meeting in Zoom, let your students know that you did that, and just remind them of when the time is to join at that time. But I also don't think it's a problem as far as having them join a little early and get comfortable with the tool before their actual class time. So in this case, I'm going to leave that on. I have the option to mute participants upon entry, which means as students come into my Zoom call, their mics will be muted. That's good. So if you're in the middle of a lecturing and a student shows up late to the call, they're going to automatically be muted. So they're not going to interrupt your lecture. So we also have the option to use a personal meeting ID. This could be useful for office hours or things like that. If you want students to jump in and out of your meeting, that could be useful. In this case, for a class, I would recommend not checking that so you have a unique meeting ID for this class. Because if you do share this with multiple people, like other faculty members or anything like that, they might be able to join that same call if you're having students in that meeting. So we have enable waiting room. I usually recommend to have this turned off. Basically, if you have this turned on, you're going to have to admit each student that comes into your class. If you do want to kind of control who's entering the classroom, then you could have this checked on. But if you have a large amount of students, that might become overwhelming, so you could leave that checked off. You have the option to record the meeting automatically, meaning when you start the meeting or anybody's in the meeting, it's going to record. If you don't know that you want to record your class just yet, you could leave this unselected so that it doesn't record automatically, but I'll show you how to record in the meeting when you're ready. All right. So when I'm finished, I can come down and hit save. When I hit save, this the email will have been sent to all my students. I do still have the ability to change any of the settings up until the time of the meeting. So I can come in here and edit anything that I just set. So if I did decide, you know what, I do want to record the meeting automatically, I could change that, or I can delete the meeting. And then when I'm ready, I can go ahead and hit start meeting. Before I do that and jump over to the Zoom portion, I want to show you one more thing in Zoom within web courses. So if I go back to Zoom, I have these tabs here. Students, when they're in your course and they select Zoom, they'll be able to see all the scheduled meetings that you have here. They'll also be able to see previous meetings. And then you'll be able to see reports of this and pull who was in those meetings from there. You also have this tab, cloud recordings. So if I do a cloud recording in my course for a meeting that I scheduled in my course, that would show up here on this tab. It automatically is unpublished. So it would actually show up like this before you come in and select publish. That's good because you can come in and review the video before you decide to share it with your students, but they won't be able to see this recording until you come in here and hit publish. All right, so I'm gonna actually jump over to Zoom and show you what that looks like. When I start a meeting, I'll be prompted to either open Zoom in a browser, or if I have it downloaded, I can do the desktop client. I'm gonna show you what the desktop client looks like in this tutorial. So I have a Zoom meeting already running and I have a couple students in here. Right now I'm not sharing my video or anything like that. I have my sound muted. When I'm ready to unmute, I could come down and hit unmute. Next to that, I have some additional audio setting options. I can select a different microphone, or I can select a different speaker. And then I can come into audio settings to configure anything additional there. I have, next to that, I have my video options to start my video. I can go ahead and show you what that looks like. So hi. When I have my video on, there's also a few other options here. I can select a different camera if I have multiple cameras hooked up to my computer, additional video settings, and I can also choose a virtual background, which is what I'm using right now to kind of hide my space behind me. When I'm ready to stop sharing my video, I can hit stop. That goes away and my profile picture's back up. Next to that, I have invite. So if I wanted to invite somebody else to this meeting, I could do so by coming here and inviting them by email or copying the URL and sharing that with them. I have manage participants, which I have open already. If I select manage participants, it's going to open this window up at the top right. And I'll be able to see who's actually in this meeting right now. I have Marie and Stephen in here. Hi, Marie and Stephen. In this box, students also have the ability to let you know, like they have the ability to raise their hand or do quick responses. As you can see, both Stephen and Marie have raised their hand, and I can actually come up to each one individually and lower it. Or if I want to clear all of these notifications, I can come down here and hit clear all. I also have the ability to mute all participants and unmute all participants. I also have this more option here where I can mute participants upon entry, which I set already in my other settings. But if I wanted to make sure that's set here, I could do that. I have the option to allow them to unmute themselves or not allow them to unmute themselves. If this is unchecked, then they would not be able to unmute themselves. And those are most of the things I'd like to cover. But as you can see here, you have these icons that show you whether they're muted or unmuted. When they're red like this, that means that we're muted and our video is not being shared. If they were had their mic on, it would look a little different. So let me actually show you what that would look like for me. So you can see that icon there with the levels. I'll hit unmute. I'm going to skip over share screen for now and actually jump into the chat. So if I select the chat, that's going to pull up this window that I have open here. I highly recommend having participants and chat open during your meeting so you can just check in and see everything that's going on and see students as they join. This is a good way to reach out to them and make sure that they're hearing you, or if they have any questions, it's a good way for them to respond, especially if you're in a larger class. And as I mentioned earlier, you have the ability in this to change who you're speaking with. So I can speak to individual students or I can speak to everyone. And then I can also change who students can speak with. If I come over to these three dots, I can set it so that they aren't chatting with anybody, that they're only chatting with me, that they're chatting with everyone, or that publicly, or that they're chatting with everyone publicly and privately, meaning they can send each other messages. I can also upload files to the chat, or I can save my chat. So next to chat, I have record. If I didn't set this meeting up to record automatically, which I didn't in this case, and I decide at some point that I would like to record it, I can come down here and hit record. On the desktop client, it gives you the option to record to the computer or record to the cloud. If I select record to the cloud, it's going to come up and have this little recording symbol in the top left. When I'm finished recording and I hit stop, which make sure you remember to stop your recordings, it's going to give me a notice letting me know that it will send me an email notification when the cloud recording is ready. So I'll go ahead and hit stop. When that recording is ready, you'll get an email that says basically the recording's ready to be viewed, and it has a link, and you can share that link with your students or other people, or if you've set this up to as a scheduled meeting in Zoom, it will show up in your web course as I showed you earlier. So next to that, I have closed captioning. I do want to mention if anyone has a student in their class that has a particular need and they're registered through Student Accessibility Services, It's possible that they might need live captioning for your class, and Zoom would be ideal for that. If you're going to use Zoom to teach your classes and you know that you have a student who needs that, make sure to reach out to Student Accessibility Services. I believe that the Center for Distributed Learning enabled a link in a lot of the courses, a lot of the face-to-face courses that have students with potential needs. So if you go to your web courses and you see captioning or live captioning, you can select those, and it'll direct you to a form to request those services. Next to that, we have breakout rooms, and I'll show you that real quick. Breakout rooms would be ideal if you had, if you normally do group work in your class and want your students to be able to split up into groups and do some uh, uh, group work together and then come back to your main Zoom meeting. So when I select breakout rooms, I can have the students sorted automatically, or I can sort them manually. In this case, I just want to add Stephen and Marie to one room. So I'll select manual and have one room, create breakout rooms. So now I have this one breakout room that I can assign the students to. So I'll hit assign and select Marie. I'll select Stephen. And then when I'm ready to open that room up to them, I can hit open room. It will tell me if they've joined that room to do any kind of group work. Once they've joined that room, and when I'm finished with them doing group work and I want them to come back, I can actually broadcast a message to them. So when I click broadcast a message, I can say, going to close the rooms, meaning I want them to come back to my main class and finish what they were doing in the breakout room. So I'll hit broadcast, and then I can hit close all rooms. That gives them about a minute to come back, finish up any work that they're doing, and come back to my main room. So I see Stephen's already back, Marie's back. And then when I'm finished using breakout rooms, I can just close that window. So the last big thing that I want to show you is sharing your screen. If you are wanting to share any kind of content with your students, whether that be a PowerPoint or whether that be, you know, a document, or whether that's something in your web course, you can come down here to share screen. It's going to give you a few different options of what you want to share. You can share your desktop, much like what I'm doing right now with you in this webinar. I'm sharing my desktop to show you how to use Zoom. I can share, you know, particular windows. I can hook up my iPad or iPhone. And then I can also share just a plain whiteboard. So if I select whiteboard and come down here to share, I now have a whiteboard that I can draw on, and I can work out any kind of equations and things like that. I'm using my mouse right now, so it's a little tricky, but if you have a Surface or a tablet or anything like that, this would be a lot easier if you were running the Zoom session from there and then use the whiteboard feature. I also have the ability from this toolbar up here to add text. And then as you can see, there's a few other options, but there's an eraser, or I can clear all drawings by hitting this little trash can. So I'll just hit clear all drawings. If I worked out a problem and then I want to save it, I could hit save. If I'm finished with my whiteboard or actually sharing anything that I'm sharing with my students, I can come up to the top and hit stop share. So when I'm finished with my meeting with my students and I'm ready to close it, I can come down here to end meeting. It's going to give me the option to just leave the meeting or end the meeting for all. If I'm going to let students continue to work, I would just leave the meeting. If I want to make sure everybody's, you know, finished and I kick everybody out, then I could hit end meeting for all. In this case, I'm not going to close this meeting just in case we have any questions, so I can come back and work in here. But let me come back over here and check out our chat, make sure nothing's been missed. So let me go ahead and hit stop share. So it looks like a lot of questions have been answered by our panelists already. We've actually moved through this really quick. I'm not sure if that's because you know, it's Friday, or if that, you know, we've just gotten used to doing this, but we moved through a lot of the content already. Are there any questions that might have come up? Janann, did you see anything that you wanted to cover or anything that you might have wanted to add?
I don't think so. The chat has been very active and I don't see any outstanding questions. So I guess we can wait and see if any come in, but that's it. That's it for me.
Okay. Oh, I see Jessica says she has 400 students in her class. So if you have 400 students, Zoom has a limit of 300. You can't invite more than 300 students to a Zoom session. If you have that many students, we highly recommend you use web courses and record content and post that to them, and do other things within web courses like discussions to get interaction. If you are would like to figure out another way to host a Zoom session, I highly recommend this, reaching out to web courses, and we might have a workaround for you for that. Let's see. How could I hold office hours for that many students? Yeah, it looks like Patricia, that's a good comment, that you could break them into groups.
I wanted to answer the question regarding the scheduler tool in the calendar in web courses at UCF. So that is still an option. It looks like the button was moved. So let me share my screen and show that to you. So, okay, you should be seeing my web courses at UCF calendar. So click on this plus icon at the top right, and then assign appointment group is where you want to click. This is where you'll enter, you'll input a name. It could just be called office hours, the date, time range, how long each session will be, how many students can join each slot. So if it's office hours, you'll want to check this and limit it to one user at a time. And then click publish. So this is the scheduler tool. It just looks, it moved and it looks a little bit different.
Awesome. Thank you, Janann.
You're welcome.
That's very helpful for office hours.
Yes, for sure.
How do they find the scheduler?
Oh, so what students will see is that, actually, let me show you the student view here. One moment. So let me share my screen again. So I'm not a student right now, so that's why I couldn't show you that in my web courses window, but this is the Canvas guide. It's very helpful. They have images and stuff, so I just wanted to show you that. So students would click on their calendar. They would select find appointments, and then they would select which course. And then they would see the different options, and then they would click on one to sign up for it. So students will see this on their calendar as long as they select their course. So you'll have to notify them that you're adding that there, so that way they can click on their calendar and click find appointment. So you'll have to direct them there, and then they just click on the slot they want, and then they'll be reserved.
Awesome. Thanks, Janann.
You're welcome.
I see a question they're asking if they could share a Zoom link in there. I think there was a space for that, right? If they created an appointment, would there be in the description or something like that that they could put a Zoom link for students to join? Or
I don't know if they can do that using the scheduler tool in web courses. If they were to schedule it using Zoom, actually, no, that wouldn't automatically happen. No.
let me show them how to do something outside of web courses and schedule a meeting outside of web courses, and that might help. So I did have a question about creating pre-recorded Zoom, so let me show that. So let me share my screen. So what I'm going to do is If I wanted to pre-record material outside of web courses, didn't want to schedule a meeting for all my students to join. I could go to ucf.zoom.us. I'd come to this landing page. I have a few different options here. I can host a meeting or I can sign in. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and sign in. I can come up to the top here and click host a meeting, or I could have clicked on that main page, host a meeting. I can come down and select how I'd like to host that meeting. When I do this, it's going to open up a Zoom meeting similar to what I have running right now, which I'm not going to do because I have one running. Once I have that Zoom meeting running, and if, let's say I don't have students in here, we'll act like Stephen and Marie aren't in here and it's just me. It's gonna be a similar setup. You just wouldn't have the students in here. I can share my screen and also have my webcam turned on and do whatever I need to do as far as sharing content. And when I'm ready to record, I can come down here and hit record. And I can record either on the computer and then upload to web courses after, or I can record to the cloud. Like I said earlier, if I record to the cloud, then I would get a link in my email and I'd be able to share that link to the video for everybody. So that's how you could pre-record content without actually having people in your Zoom meeting. Let me come back here and hit stop. Let me see if there's any other questions. Future activity. Can you give each group a different document to review? So if you wanted to do something like that, you could technically share that document in web courses and assign it that way so that they're all viewing a different document. You could have the names of the documents set up in there. But as far as sharing it in a breakout group, I would actually have to check. But if you made those materials available to them before the Zoom meeting, that would be one way to do it. And that's for if you're doing an activity during a Zoom session, somebody asked, can you give each group a different document to review within their discussion breakout? Let me see. I do want to say, if Zoom is going to be good for, if you want to record or if you want to have that interaction with your students. But if there's things that you can do within web courses, such as like discussions or just sharing assignments or sharing documents, we highly recommend that all goes through web courses. And Zoom is just one tool for you to be able to communicate with your students. So let's see. I feel like, we might be finishing a lot early today. I know.
Yeah, this was our shortest one.
Yeah, I think all the rest we went all the way to 3, but if there's no other questions, we might let everybody go early and enjoy their weekends.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
So, John, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Thank you, Ari. Thank you, Janan. Amazing work with what you girls have done on this. To stand all this up in pretty much a week with a few days turnaround the plan is just sort of amazing in such a short time frame. I'm going to go ahead and just jump into our closing. But before I do that, let's go ahead and also I want to thank our moderators. We've had, throughout these sessions, we've had one each day this week. We've had close to anywhere between 12 and 15 moderators from a diverse background, from instructional designers to teaching faculty to tech support staff, AV specialists, and just general support staff across multiple departments, such as the Center for Distributed Learning, Division of Digital Learning, Office of Instructional Resources, Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning, and other faculty across the university who have been helping out to answer the questions and make sure that everyone gets their questions answered. And big thank you to everyone who's participating in that. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen, and I'm going to make 2 announcements as well as talk about some future training we're going to offer. So bear with me one second. We'll get the right screen here. Okay, there we go. So everyone should be seeing the UCF Keep Teaching site. If you haven't seen it already, go ahead and check it out. This is a great resource for getting your class into a remote instruction or online modality in a short amount of time. We have resources on here for what you need to do. Our training is all listed on here as well as links to get support and resources for getting your courses online. I believe somebody in the chat asked about, I came in late, where could I find the next sessions, and as well as the recording. All of our recordings for this series, which is the Keep Teaching series, is right here on the Keep Teaching site. And it's actually going to be this video embedded on the right. And all of our past ones are there. After today, I'm probably going to just upload one and have it transcribed and just leave our most engaged recording up there. So you could probably see today's recording right there. We will be following up with a new series for Zoom, specifically for Zoom, and we're going to do this a little bit differently. Whereas the Keep Teaching workshop was completely open. It was a little bit generic, and we did a presentation. The Zoom workshops are going to be more hands-on. They're going to be a small group, 10 or less. We're going to actually get in with faculty. There'll be an individual from our tech support team and some individuals from our instructional design team in the room who will be providing help and allowing faculty to kind of move through Zoom and the tools and providing guidance and answering questions. It's going to be a very hands-on virtual workshop. And because of that, we're going to limit that to just 10 people, 10 individuals per session. And I think we're offering like seven sessions next week. We are in the process of nailing down the logistics for that. So we're hoping to get something on the website by the end of today. I'll even get an email sent out to all faculty across the university, probably today or Saturday, for more information on where they can go to sign up for these sessions. So be on the lookout for the sessions, for those particular sessions. Furthermore, I just want to call a little bit of attention to, if this is your first time going online and providing remote instruction, this checklist right here, this things to consider when moving your course online, is a good starting point. You'll get everything from the basics, what you need to review, syllabus schedule, recording and posting lectures. We'll talk a little more about Zoom. There are some resources in here for Zoom as well as going down to communication and ensuring the content accessibility, fostering student communication online. So this is kind of a good starting point. If you're interested in Zoom, because Zoom is a hot topic right now, down this section, delivering live lectures online, we have all of our Zoom playlists. We're adding more and more videos into this playlist each day. So you can just come straight to the site, play it here, and then if you go on the top right of the video, click that, and you'll notice you'll see the other videos in this playlist. And we plan on adding 2 more later today or Monday. So you can go to this section, get all the resources you need for Zoom. And then what I wanted to call attention to at the bottom of the page, if you haven't seen it already, you may want to share with your students the UCF Keep Learning page. And it's basically the version of Keep Teaching, but for students and what they need to know to be successful in an online environment. So if you haven't already, push this out to your students. We want to make sure that they're doing good in this new environment as well. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and conclude today's session. Janan, Ari, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think I'm good. Thank you so much, John. We look forward to, hearing from everybody, seeing if they come to the sessions next week also. So
Yes, we look forward to seeing you all there.
Okay, well, that about wraps things up. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. And just remember to keep checking the Keep Teaching site. We'll have more information there on more training sessions throughout the next couple of weeks. Take care.